Welcome back to The Vote Matters. I'm your host, Tia Sneem, and here at TVM, we discuss political topics through a nonpartisan and entertaining manner to empower you, the voter. Today, we have a special interview. This is the first time we've ever done an in-person interview. His name is Vikram. He's an up-and-coming DJ out of Orange County, and, today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of like, realistically, the First Amendment, So,
awesome.
Let's get this.
I'm pumped.
So yeah, man, let's see. I guess we can start off the conversation you started in the pandemic.
Yes.
Right? And that's where this whole Vikram music came from.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of a breakdown on what got you started.
Really? I mean, it was just a love for the scene. I started going to raves back when I was 18, straight out of high school, and I just kind of fell in love with it. My first shows was Above and Beyond at Huntington Beach, and, kind of stereotypical. Went to it, 18 years old, and just fell in love. And ever since then, it was the number one thing I wanted to do. Practice DJing. I got a DJ deck and everything, and did that a couple fraternity parties, did little shows here and there. And then eventually I made that step into music production. And from there, I just got hooked.
No.
Just nonstop. And it was during the pandemic that I started learning how to produce. Mm-hmm. And literally, I would be, coming back home from school, I was just 24/7 on Ableton, watching YouTube videos, just wanting to get really good. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty much my whole life until I got into a music production school in Burbank. And that was a 1-year program called Icon. And that just took my production to a whole other level. And then, just from there, just started releasing music with different labels. Mm-hmm. And, here we are today, still cranking out tracks, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, I've been listening to your stuff for a while, and to be honest, it's so funny, too, because you have a big following. I tell everybody that it's oh, what's Vikram's music like? I'm oh, it's an experience. It's a journey.
It is.
And, I think that all us entrepreneurs can try and we can relate to these things,
100%.
The tribulations, the moments that really define us, or when we want to stop, we start to realize we can't because it's an extension of ourselves.
You just keep on wanting to do it. You want to get better and better. Mm-hmm. It's an everyday process.
100%. And where do you see yourself kind of going in the near future with your music?
Well, future goal is to be, a traveling DJ. Being a festival DJ. That is real. Going on tour. That would be the biggest thing that I'm aiming for. Mm-hmm. Being able to do music full time. Because right now, obviously, most up and coming entrepreneurs, I just have a 9 to 5, and I'm also doing music on the side. Mm-hmm. So my goal would be music 24/7, make that my full-time job.
I love it. And, I guess this is where I'm just so curious, too. Because you're here on The Vote Matters, right? Mm-hmm. Music and politics just never seem that's where stuff gets really intriguing.
Yeah,
right?
That's where it gets crazy.
And I've been talking to my dad a little bit about it, and when we heard that you were going to come on the pod, we were trying to figure out, okay, how can we structure this interview to where it's also going to correlate back to the vote
with you guys too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the first thing is freedom of expression, right?
100%.
And I get with your music. It's not a lyrical flow base, but it's more of that beat-based type of music. It's like a tech house type style.
Yeah.
How important do you feel when it comes to music, that expression?
It's huge.
I feel like that's probably the most important aspect of it, right?
It's massive, and especially in techno where it's all about freedom of expression. When you go to a techno show, whether it's in downtown LA or you go to a show in Berlin, it's all about freedom of expression. You can do whatever wear whatever you want to wear, dance however you want to be. Even things like your sexuality, big LGBTQ community. It's all about freedom, and I really do think techno is a very dark genre, but the whole point of it is that you get kind of like all your aggression out, and it's a feel of liberation almost. You feel free from, maybe things in society that are dragging you down. And that's really how I look at, especially in the realm of techno music, that's really the way I kind of see it with expression, that, it's such a underground warehouse vibe, it's like the sewer, it's super dark, super grimy, but people are able to find peace in there, this aggressive techno going super fast and super dark music, and it relates to a lot of people. It's such a growing scene.
100%.
Yeah.
That's how you and I bonded. When I
Yeah,
first met
yeah.
you. I was playing you some jams, and you're like, what the heck? Like, how the heck does he know this stuff, Because, to your point, it's a small community still.
It
but
is, yeah.
It's constantly expanding. But, when you look at the history of techno as well, people don't realize that it was molded and created in cities that were collapsing.
100%.
You look at Detroit. Economy completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Berlin, the Berlin Wall divided that.
The World War II, yeah.
Yeah, for 30 plus years at least. And then once the wall came down, people no longer had commonalities within their own city. Completely different culture shifts. And techno was a music that gave people...
brought them together.
Yeah. So that's why, to me, I'm like, why wouldn't we talk about techno on a channel like this? Because music is also a binder of society.
Yeah, and you just kind of reminded me that, Detroit was hit so hard, after so many companies left. It was absolutely decimated, and to see, like, the techno scene in there just thrive. And in Berlin, after World War II, completely destroyed. And that's where that whole scene just kind of got really big at. And even places like Poland too, like they love it. They have, Eastern European countries where like they're hit so hard, and they just really came together for with techno.
100%. Yeah, dude. Music in itself is a great way to gauge how a society is doing.
The reflection almost.
100%. And I guess I want to get your take. Like, currently, we just had an election. We've had a pandemic, 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
How have you seen the music shift due to these things that are occurring in our life?
Oh, really? It's like almost the guys who were doing stuff, like just literally just average guys posting their song on like TikTok or on Instagram. Those are the guys that, like, they're thriving right now. They did stuff during that pandemic, and, the reflection was, tech house got really big. But, it's right now, it's so popular. Like, it's getting so big. Especially right now, like, in the mainstream, tech house is massive. Cloney, Pasa, like all Michael B, like all those guys are just absolutely massive, and that's like more of the sound right now. It's super popular, and it's kind of crazy because it's more like happier music, they're on the happier side. But that's really what you saw from the pandemic. You saw like the bedroom producer just post like one simple click on TikTok.
And would you say, the music itself, even though that was a very negative time for it?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is a lot of that music that was created during that time is actually more of an uplifting and positive energy that came from that?
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting.
Just more tech, more groovy, more vocal, it's definitely more on the uplifting side, I would say. But that's why I'm curious to see what happens with this next election. Maybe darker music might get popular. Or we'll see what happens, because I would definitely say it's, tech house is really just dominating the scene right now.
Yeah, for sure, especially in America, I would say.
100%, in America especially. You just don't go to your average bar here and they're playing, like techno or dubstep. It's usually tech house.
100%.
For the most part. Which 100%. I love tech house.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many subgenres to it. And I am curious too, like, when we look at like past music, right? I really want to talk a little bit about like the importance of music. Like, one thing people don't even recognize how important music is every nation has their national anthem as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
Which is their mission statement for what they stand for.
Yeah.
Right? And it made me start to realize music cannot just be, is more than just utilized for like a good time. It's utilized also for like strength, or utilized for like war chants, or all these things, you know? And I'm just curious, we went through a cancel culture moment.
Yes.
What did you see happening within the music industry during that time? Was music unscathed from it, or were there still artists that were having a hard time producing what they wanted to produce?
You know, for the most part, I think now I'm really thinking about it, like I think most people were, I would say, were unscathed from it. I can't really think of anyone, you know, usually artists who did stuff for like the wrong reasons. Yeah, you know the names, you know, like, you know, the Diddy's and, you know.
Take cake.
Yeah. But, you know, like regarding music, like, I can't really think of too many people that were canceled because of their music. You know, I think you saw more almost like bad people get exposed for things that they did in their past. But for people within their music, I can't really say too many people that got canceled strictly for their music or something that they said. I can't really think of anybody.
Yeah, because I do, or you have some?
Well, yeah, actually, one of the things that was really interesting was you were talking about sort of the underground of this whole movement and everything like that. And, you know, over the last 6 years, especially during COVID and everything, you see a lot more awareness of sort of that alternative culture. And it seems like this probably helped more or less bring that more to the forefront, where it doesn't feel like it's in the shadows, like it can actually be out there and have more self-expression with it. I mean, that's why it seems like you would thrive with this last sort of 6 years. It seems like things were moving in a direction to bring it sort of more into the mainstream. It's not quite there, I guess. Maybe it's starting to get there, but it seems like that movement has been sort of trying to lift out of that space. What do you think about that? I mean,
100%. Like, even now, like, counterculture is becoming almost like the culture. Even when I think of like that, you know, like techno is very much like anti-government, all that, and now it's almost becoming, it's getting bigger. It's getting a lot bigger, and yeah, you're seeing that through, you know, social media. That's, you know, people record more things at shows, and it's just gaining more popularity. And I think, like, almost like counterculture has always been like the cool thing, you know. Even when hip hop was coming up, hip hop like that, like kids, like you got like white kids wearing like clothes that, you know, like yeah, that sort of situation, you know, where they're wearing street clothes, and that sort of counterculture even bleeds into like fashion.
100%. I mean, look at the Sex Pistols, and like when you go to the grunge scene, the classic rock.
Yeah.
And you learn about the history of rock and roll, and you're like, whoa, I did not realize that was slave music.
Yeah.
Right? And now everybody's like playing it, but they don't even know the history of it.
They don't even know, yeah.
They don't even know the history.
Yeah.
They just think, oh, it's a good time. I'm like, well, look back in the history books and you understand why it became a good time.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's even with like house and techno music was made for gay black men. That was literally what it was made for having a safe space in those clubs in Chicago or Detroit. And that's really like the beginning of it almost. And I don't think a lot of people know that now, you know, like it all stemmed through that counterculture.
And it was the importance of media. And we talk a lot about media here too. When we talk about techno, the thing that really elevated techno to a global standpoint rather than just a city-based standpoint was Berlin had an LGBTQ parade, and it was the first ever LGBTQ parade filmed and put on worldwide news.
Yeah.
And all they were playing,
It was techno.
and people were like, "What in the world is this?" And that's when techno was like, "Can't play that. You can't play that."
Yeah.
And that's where you bring up this whole the counterculture.
Counterculture, yeah. It's even a thing now. Like people wear like techno out. Like we're all black. They're like, "Oh, you're wearing a techno outfit, huh?" And you're like, "Yeah." It's like almost like a fashion. You see it kind of coming its way into fashion, and you see people wear all black and everything, all blacked out. And it's kind of like it's a vibe. It's a vibe.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And I guess coming back more to yourself and trying to relate to present times, like with this most recent election, as an entrepreneur breaking into the space and trying to figure out your groove, like how did you go about like the election? Did you do some research on how it's going to help you pursue your goals? Did you do a little research on which candidate best represented you within the economy or like the economic standpoint? Like, how did you go about
I mean,
that?
really, I just looked at the ballot and I just kind of read the descriptions and just kind of went from there. There wasn't really like, when I thought about an entrepreneurial space, it was just kind of more. I always kind of prioritize more the local votes, but I would say there wasn't anyone that stood out almost or kind of like pointed in that sort of direction. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what happens and see almost we can project what happens in the future spaces for clubs, festivals. Yeah, I guess we can only project.
Dude, we're hoping because ticket prices seem to just keep on
Oh
soaring.
my God, I know. I guess so. This Saturday is Dream State, and I was looking at the ticket price, and it was like $160, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's insane. But you know what? It's a business, and
So you don't even think it has anything really to do with like the political, like it's more the music political scene that's kind of dictating the cost.
I would say so. Like Insomniac, they've done great work. They're the top dogs, and it's almost like they can kind of put the price on what they believe the value is. And production's always fantastic. The music's always great. The artists are always really good. So, they can kind of put whatever price they want to put on there. But yeah, I mean, ticket prices, they're, I feel like every year they just go higher.
Yep.
It
just keeps going, man.
It just keeps going, and it's insane. But you know what? It's the day and age we live in.
Yeah, man. It is definitely a lot different than back in the day. I mean, I remember. Well, I guess coming back to it, like your music is free flowing. It's got a little bit of this hard punch in there. Definitely spacey vibe. I get that.
Yeah.
I've listened to your stuff, and I'm always kind of impressed that it, like, some techno is very repetitive. Yours is like a 3-segment song. It goes from like intro, middle ground to the climax, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for me, like, as you are creating this music, what are you trying to give people?
Really, my music is, I like to have it as a story. You have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end. And a lot of times my music is it's very big. It's very grandiose. It's very emotional. And I want the listener to feel something when they hear my stuff. Like, if you ever hear it, like, my music's not necessarily happy music, like I want the listener to really think about what they just heard. Or, really internalize it, be able to break it down, and hopefully they can almost like feel something. Because that's my biggest thing, is that I want people to feel with my music.
Yeah, like the sensation, but it's not even just like a bodily sensation, right?
It's a physical, mental,
spiritual,
it's a journey, and like. That's why in the beginning I was doing a lot of songs that were like 7 minutes long, 6 minutes. Now I've had to like cut it down now for commercial reasons. I've got to make more like 3-minute tracks. But still within those 3 minutes, I'll get all the information from those 7-minute tracks. I'll just condense it down into 3 minutes, a little faster flowing. But still, I think that's like the main goal for my music, is that I want to have the listener go through a journey.
I like that. Well,
Another question.
ah,
So, when you talk about that expression that you want, how do you get the feedback to know that you're sort of hitting it? Do you look at a lot of social posts, or do you just sort of talk with people, or is it just you're just seeing your demand go up and you're on the right path?
Yeah, it's just, it's actually from people messaging me, I would say. They're like, this is a great track, and this made me, feel a certain way. Or like, oh, I was coming back from a show, and I listened to it, and it was like, oh my God, and just positive feedback from people. Whenever I do post about something, that sort of stuff really keeps me going. I'd probably say like social media. And I think sometimes you just kind of know when you make a banger track.
yeah, it's that sensation coursing through your blood, man.
Yeah. Sometimes you just kind of know. And, that's what I really have learned now that I'm putting music out there, that getting that feedback from other people. And yeah, I think sometimes you just kind of know. Spiritually, you kind of know, and like, you'll sit there, and after I finish a track, I'm like, damn. You're like, that was exhausting, and that's how I kind of know at that point where, and I think a lot of it too is that I'm very emotionally connected, spiritually, and especially with my music. I can kind of know when I'm really putting my soul into something. And yeah, I think that's the best way I can almost recollect information about my tracks.
Very cool. Very cool. Another question, man.
Yeah, we have a question about, you're really knowing this industry, you're sort of on the inside. Do you do any type of mentoring, or do you ask people to come to you to, have you ever even thought about that space at all?
That's a great, I have had people ask me for feedback on their tracks, and it's crazy. It's usually from like people that I've just met through music, people who have just like from all over the world. I had a guy actually from India. He was like, how does my track sound? And I listened to it, and he made a great track. And it's definitely something I think later down the road, I would definitely think about doing more mentorships and helping other people get into the scene. But yeah, whenever someone asks me to give them feedback on a track, I love doing it. I'll leave those notes in the SoundCloud. And I think it's a great way. It's even, I get better when I hear other people's tracks, because sometimes I'll hear some of these guys who have a smaller following, and I'm like, damn, that was really, really good. So yeah, I definitely would, some artists who come to me, I'll give them feedback. And just in my local friend group too, I love giving back feedback. But yeah, definitely something in the future that I would love to do. And even my mentor right now that I have, who's above me, like, he is amazing, All the feedback he gives back to me on my tracks. And being in that place, I think giving back to the community is pretty awesome.
Well, that's the other thing about music that I think is really good, is it's not just honed in one specific place. You know, like the most popular songs are played throughout the whole world, and the whole world feels connected to that one song.
Yes.
And that's why the music scene to me is so vital to understand and must maintain sacred, you know?
100%.
It cannot be tainted because it is too powerful. It is utilized in every single nation. Little kids are listening to it.
Yeah.
The eldest individuals that are rolling around are listening to it. And it formulates your mind,
It does.
And there's some music out there where I listen to it and I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd let my kid listen to that, but I'd let him listen to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music is just too important, in my opinion.
Massive.
I always tell people that, the best way to learn another language is listen to the music that they listen to in that specific language.
Sing those songs. That's, if you go to a foreign country, like, that's massive, Spanish, just hop on a Pitbull track. It's a great way to do it.
It's fascinating stuff, and I think with music, it's so vital. It's the epitome of freedom of speech, in my opinion.
100%.
It comes in there with your ability to express, provide a
yeah.
sensation, and from there, hopefully, vitalize or like give someone some form of inspiration to go out there and start doing a similar type of hobby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's massive.
Another question. So you expressed being like part of that counterculture, and I think in the past a lot of people saw one party being less sort of, let's call it the Republican Party, was a little bit more staunch. They were sort of monolithic in their beliefs. Do you like with the recent election? I mean, you have a very overwhelming sort of Republican movement going on. Do you see it as Republican, or do you see like as conservative, or do you see it as something else?
Like a counterculture, I guess.
I guess almost. I guess we'll have to see. Like definitely within music. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll kind of have to see almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely say that it is the much more counterculture thriving. But yeah, I think we'll just have to see what comes of it.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to gauge music too because I feel like most music that comes out today, there's some songs that are like just about today.
Yeah.
And then there are some songs that are about like a dilemma that happened 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
Like the film industry operates in a way where they tell themselves, we are not going to make a movie about a current war, but we will make a movie about a war that happened 20 years ago because now the emotions have subsided from that
We
war.
can now do something about that, yeah.
When it comes to the music industry, I feel like it's not as long of a duration period of that, but they follow a similar suit where they, I mean, I think rap, in my opinion, is the one genre that just says, screw you, like,
I'll get on the mic right now. Yep, I'll get on Ableton. I'll pour it out right now. Yeah. But like for like electronic music, it's a little tough to gauge because also like electronic music, it's not very much vocally driven, which is also something now that with my newer music, I'm kind of
tapping into.
Yeah. I think with my newer music, I'm been hiring a lot more vocalists, and I want to make my music a little more vocally driven. As before is more beats and everything like that. Now I want to make it more vocalist. But you know what? That's the thing in the EDM realm. It's a little tougher because it's not like a direct message as it was maybe in like hip hop, where you can literally just hop on a mic right now, record something out, and say what you want to say.
Well, I think the crazy thing about the rap movement is that was probably the only time, or not the only time, even rock and roll had its moments in history, but these movements were the epitome of counterculture, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you were seeing some form of censorship for sure. NWA definitely went through it.
Jimi Hendrix
with
the guitar. Man.
Crazy. Even Bob Marley.
Bob Marley,
Marley stood for something a little bit bigger. I mean, I never realized that until I saw the movie, and I was like, oh, that was a political movement. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so, with EDM, I think the only reason why I don't think it'll ever get censored is because there's just... EDM is the definition of free space, free thought,
100%,
free flowing. I listen to an artist named Paul Kalkbrenner all the time, and he is a Berlin Wall,
Yeah.
That's where his music originates, but it is a completely different movement. It is all about finding balance and peace.
Yes, I think peace is a big thing because, it's crazy because you're going to a warehouse that's just thumping. And people go in there, and they come out with like clean minds almost, even though they're like in the dirtiest place ever. They come out with a clean slate, and I think that's almost how, even though there are no vocals specifically saying anything political, whatever thoughts they have maybe, when they go into a warehouse, once they come out, they feel almost like cleansed, and they were able to express themselves.
100%. I mean, I'm a calm guy. But in a techno scene, and like I need to be in that environment every once in a while, because I've noticed my work is a lot better once I come out of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's like a workout. You dance it off and you sweat it out, and by the end of it, you just it's like doing a workout. You feel cleansed.
100%.
So for these types of events, somebody was asking, how do you find them? Like, where do you go to sort of know where these warehouses are and things of that nature?
That's the beauty of techno. It's almost kind of like a word of mouth. I mean, definitely in downtown LA, they're still considered illegal, but they still it's more like word of mouth. And then you can use different apps and it'll show you where the parties are at. But it is technically illegal, but it's almost like if you want to find it, you'll somehow hear a word by mouth, or you'll find a way if you want to get into that scene. You'll find a way, and it's such a that's such a big. I think that's a big thing that people don't talk about in the music scene in LA is the warehouse culture. I mean, it's huge. It's very underground.
So, I guess this will be our closing segment right here. With your music and going out there and being able to express yourself, what's the best advice you can give to fellow entrepreneurs who are trying to tap into this space?
Really, you can't care what people think or say. You just got to do your thing. You got to have a vision. You have to have an idea of what you want to do, and you just got to go for it. And it's going to take hours of work. And not even that, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. I think that's the big thing people forget to talk about is that there's a lot of sacrifice, hanging out with friends. Sometimes you can't do certain things. You need to take that time and really focus on getting good at your craft. And for me, it was Ableton. I took hours and hours of getting good at how to use Ableton, how to make better tracks, how to market myself better, how to make, everything within that space. Just really take time to yourself, know what you want to do, and get really, really good at it. I think that's my biggest, I would say, advice to people in the entrepreneurial space,
Love it. Love it. And thank you guys for watching. This is The Vote Matters. Be sure to follow Vikram on Instagram, TikTok at @VikramMusic_.
Yep, yep, that's it, Vikram Music.
As always, The Vote Matters. Stay tuned for more upcoming content. Let's go.
Sick as fuck, dude.
Hopefully that worked for you.
No, that was perfect.